Ladies and gentlemen, December 2020, after 3 months on YouTube, now we have more than 5,000 subscribers, more than 50,000 views, and more than 300,000 minutes watched. So, if you've watched our previous videos, you will notice that we focused on IELTS, OET, PTE. They are the English examinations that you need to pass in order to go to US, UK, Ireland, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. After that, we featured the testing centers, namely British Council, IDP, they are for IELTS, and we also featured ACE Testing Hub representing OET. After that, we included a discussion of visa processing. But now, we're going to do something different after 3 months here on YouTube. And what is it that we're going to do? We're going to feature Filipinos who are now citizens of the 6 English-speaking countries that I have mentioned earlier. So we thought, who could be the most credible and reliable resource person to represent New Zealand? Okay, so before that, I just have to make sure that you see my outfit right here. Okay, and Z. New Zealand is actually awarded as one of the most livable countries in the world. And so our guest speaker for today first arrived in New Zealand 11 years ago. So in 2009, she became a New Zealand registered nurse. Years after, in 2016, she became officially a citizen of New Zealand. And now, I'm very happy and proud to present our guest speaker for this vlog, the co-founder of Pinoy Nurses Abroad. Let us welcome Miss Crestine Carson. Hi, Miss Crestine. Will you please greet our subscribers?
I would say Kia ora or Kia ora. That's welcome in New Zealand. And as you can see, my background there is the Sky City Tower in Auckland. This is not the capital of New Zealand actually, but it's the biggest city in New Zealand. So when you land here, you will see that. So sa mga nagbabalak na mag-nurse, work, live here in New Zealand, please do watch this video. You will be inspired, and maybe you're facing challenges right now. You better watch this video and you will just make things happen.
Okay, so for the benefit of our audience and our subscribers, for the first part, we're going to talk about something general. So anything related to migrating to New Zealand or studying in New Zealand or going to New Zealand in general. I am 100% sure it is not your first time to hear that New Zealand has always been awarded as one of the most peaceful, one of the most livable countries in the world. And so we're going to hear it straight from a New Zealand citizen herself. So now the question is, Miss Crestine, will you please give us an idea of the living conditions in New Zealand, especially now during the pandemic that New Zealand has survived and has actually been recognized as one of the best countries in the world to respond to the pandemic. So let's hear it from Miss Crestine.
Well, before the pandemic, I would say it's like, yes, the most livable country in the world. It's beautiful. Well, it's small. It's actually just geographically, like maybe say with Philippines, and not overpopulated for sure. It's like, because I'm from Cebu, I live in Cebu in the Philippines, and the whole country of New Zealand got the whole population of Cebu. And that's like, I think it's almost 5 million now. So it's really small, but very innovative. It's a first world country, of course. And they say it's laid back. Of course, if you live outside the city, like Auckland, but if you're in Auckland, you got everything here. Well, yeah. So right now, it's a pandemic. Oh my gosh. Everybody wants to come here, actually, to be honest. So I'm proud. And I was actually in the Philippines during the pandemic from January to August. And I feel so blessed that I'm a citizen of New Zealand because I had that choice to come back here. And honestly, it's like, I was like crying, like, you know, it's like tears of joy because right now here we live like normal. It's like we're very careful because we're in level 1. We're still careful. We still have COVID, but very minimal community transmission. And my gosh, the response. I've just mentioned I was in the Philippines and I've seen the difference, how it is managed. I feel way, way safer here, honestly. And right now our border is in control, like really controlled, to those who wants to come here. Of course, it's limited right now, but I'm pretty sure in the next few years, especially when we have the vaccine, I've heard like great news coming that it will be open again. So, oh my gosh, I don't know. I wish, like right now, I actually, before we did not have plans to like ask my family to migrate here because we're quite happy in the Philippines, like we have businesses. But this pandemic really like said, no, I want you here. I want you to have that option like I have, for my whole family. And if you're planning to come here, maybe it's part of your plan. Look for those, options. What can you do? It's a great, great option, honestly.
For the benefit of our audience, just to compare, okay, the Philippines, 300,000 square kilometers of land. New Zealand, 270,000 square kilometers of land, which means to say the Philippines is just a little bigger than New Zealand. But how many people do we have in the Philippines? 108 to 109 million people. But what about the entire New Zealand? More or less 5 million. So imagine, we're approximately of the same size, but the Philippines is like what? More than 20 times more populated as compared to New Zealand. Now you totally understand why it is very easy for the government of New Zealand to manage the people. They are not overpopulated. At the same time, they have plenty of resources to help the locals, the citizens, especially during a pandemic like this. So you've heard it straight from Miss Crestine herself. She was here in the Philippines for the longest time during the pandemic, but when she moved to New Zealand, she came back because she's a citizen. She was able to compare the conditions. So now we know that she's a citizen. A lot of people are asking, so what was your visa when you entered New Zealand? And during that time, how did you apply for that visa? Because that's the bottom line of this YouTube vlog. We're not just here para inggitin kayo about New Zealand, but to inspire, to encourage you guys in going to New Zealand. So let's hear it from Miss Christine. Which visa did she use as point of entry to New Zealand and what she did to apply for that visa?
Yeah, you'll be surprised because it was, guess what? It's actually a tourist visa.
Oh.
Tourist visa, and those are the pathway for nurses, but it's not applicable for everyone. So there's different visas if you want to come here, depending on your situation, of course. So for me personally, because I have to study here as a nurse, it's not a long one, it's like 2 months. We call it the CAP, our competency assessment program. That's the best way or the best pathway for nurses. There's different pathway, but this is the best way and in a way, shortest way to become a registered nurse in New Zealand, okay? So I'm allowed to study for the visa and then I converted it to work visa. So I'm very lucky. Back in 2009, it's way, way easier to come here, like 6 months experience. I have an agency and I want to give you an option. You can choose an agency or DIY. There's a website, New Zealand website, it's quite friendly. But most Filipinos, I think we prefer to have agency to guide us. I want to caution you that you have to choose the right agency. Okay, because I am actually a volunteer diplomat. I volunteer for the embassy with the New Zealand Philippine embassy, and we have issues like false promises and all that, and it's been challenging for us, and we want to avoid that. But you just have to find the right pathway based on your profession for what you want, and I really want you to think long term. I think this is what I want to highlight straight away. You have to think long-term when you want to come here. Don't rush, think about what can I get in the next 3 years, 5 years. Sometimes you're like, okay, you can leave in 3 months. And then after 2 years, you will end up going home to the Philippines because you did not have the right visa or the right pathway. So those are the important keys that you need to know. Research, 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 I would say, and verify all those information. So we have a lot of groups, and I'm actually part of the moderator of Pinoy's in NZ and Pinoy Nurses in NZ. And we have lots of information there. So you can join that too, actually. I will share the link here. So
Okay,
yeah.
so just to recap for the benefit of our audience, there are several visas as point of entry going to New Zealand. So for certain professions, they can migrate right away. They can apply for immigrant visa immediately. There are also certain professions that will allow you to study first before you go to New Zealand. So in the case of Miss Crestine, FYI, New Zealand does not offer working visa right away for the nurses because the nurses need to be assessed first. So as she mentioned earlier, she had to take CAP Competence Assessment Program way back in 2009. And so the visa that she used in going to New Zealand during that time is tourist visa. But like what Miss Crestine said earlier, she would like to highlight that's not the visa for everyone. Okay, so more than anything else, assessment must be the first step. So in going to New Zealand, you have two options. If you think you are smart enough, then go ahead. You can just visit the New Zealand website. You can follow all the instructions there. However, if you feel that, okay, this is perhaps when I need some assistance, that's when you can consult say for instance, migration agent or an immigration lawyer to help you out. But if you want to make sure that this company is legit, kindly double check with the New Zealand embassy. Because like what Miss Crestine said, not everyone is honest enough in discussing the options in going to New Zealand. So we heard earlier that she first entered New Zealand in 2009. And back then, she only needed 6 months of experience. Now, for our next question, there you go. So she first entered New Zealand in 2009 and then became a citizen in 2016. So in the case of Miss Crestine, what did she do to apply for citizenship?
Okay, so actually, so as a citizen, there's a pathway. So from visitor's visa to work visa. Once you have the work visa, there are criteria, and then you can apply for. First is the permanent residency. So permanent residency and citizenship actually almost have the same benefits, like very, very close, except you cannot vote. But as a permanent resident, if you are, example, a permanent resident right now and there's a pandemic, you're still allowed to come back and you're part of the priority. So that doesn't take long. For some, it can take like, I was kind of like mucking around. I didn't apply straight away, which I could. Like some nurses, they get their permanent residency in like 4 months or 6 months. For me, I think it took a year because I kind of delayed, like, they are these paperwork again. And we call it the EOI, or the expression of interest, when you are here in New Zealand. And then after applying for a residency, or you have to wait for, I think, a year for permanent residency. And then from being a permanent resident, you have to wait. The citizenship is mostly the time that you spent in New Zealand. So 5 years from being a permanent resident. So that's why for me, if I came here 2019, I became permanent resident in 2011 or 12. And that's the 5 years from that, you will have to count. And they really count. Like if you go home to the Philippines, there's a certain hour, a certain days that you must live in New Zealand to get the citizenship. And I just want to add, because I always highlight this, because, I am married to a Kiwi, and marrying him did not help me become a citizen faster. And I'm like, oh my gosh, because it doesn't matter. But there are ways if you have the fiancé visa. So again, there's so many options, so many, like it's open to any individual. If you are in the profession where New Zealand needs you, it's not just nurses, but there's so many. Yeah, you should, I think it's worth looking at.
I just want to highlight for the benefit of our audience and subscribers, USA, UK, and Ireland, these three countries usually prioritize the healthcare workers. So if you're not a healthcare worker, it might take quite some time for you to go to US, UK, or Ireland. However, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, these are the three destinations open for everyone, regardless of profession, regardless of occupation. That's why we chose to talk about New Zealand first here in our YouTube vlog, to give an opportunity for the non-healthcare workers to go abroad. So, as you've heard, Miss Crestine applied for permanent residency, and that's when she became a citizen. Now, you might be wondering, what's the meaning of livable? So let's ask Miss Crestine. Personally, I've heard of the stories of my lecturers, my coaches, and my former reviewees who are now citizens of New Zealand. But let's hear it from her. What are the benefits once you are a permanent resident? I've heard that there are unemployment benefits, or there are old age benefits, or when you give birth, there are maternity benefits. So let's hear all of these benefits from a New Zealand citizen herself.
Well, at first, of course, I think this is open for, like, as a permanent resident, of course, the medical is, I think it's a big thing for me coming from the Philippines, where I've seen big hospital bills when you are in the hospital. Like, I
That's
have
right.
aunties who suffered cancer, and here, like, all you have to do is to look after yourself. You go to the hospital and it's all free, honestly. Like, my friend was admitted to the hospital, had a surgery, did not even pay for a single dollar. Like, can you just imagine how stressful it can be if you have to think of, your health and finances at the same time? And that's what I think that's the biggest difference what we have here. And I guess I'm proud of that as well. I guess the UK and Canada does that too. But yeah, that's one. Of course, for families, it's very good for families, honestly. I have friends with kids, so free for the education is free. During the pandemic, my gosh, a lot of them received laptop from the government. It's amazing.
Received laptop.
Yeah, honestly.
Sana all.
Like, it's amazing. Of course, they look at your income and all that, but generally, dental is free for under 18 years old. Dental, the GP. What else? There's so many free
GP,
stuff.
what is GP, Miss
GP,
Christine?
sorry, is doctor. Like, if you go to
General
a
physician.
clinic, like you don't need to go to the hospital. Just a
Okay.
regular checkup. We call it the GP or general practitioner. That's also free. So many benefits. I don't know. I can't highlight it enough. There's just so many. Of course, yes, if you lose your job, but of course you have to apply for that. You're right, maternity. I think they're giving now longer maternity leave as well. We have this thing called work and income. So in case you lose, like this pandemic, they supported almost all businesses. If they are affected by the pandemic, the government has been paying their employees. Honestly, it's just, I'm like, wow. And you're right, it's because it's a smaller country with less population, so they can, and they have also like the budget, I guess.
Okay, so let's have a recap for those benefits mentioned, okay? Number one, dental checkup or dental services for free if you are younger than 18 years old. Number two, GP or general practitioner if you want to have medical checkup, it's also totally free. And then
For children as well, yeah.
for children, okay. Number three, education is free. Number four, unbelievable health benefits, free surgery, free so on and so forth. And then when you give birth, there are maternity benefits. When you lose your job, there is unemployment benefit. And by the time you grow old, the government also pays for the nursing home. So imagine all of that. Imagine in the Philippines, from March 16, that's when the ECQ started, right? How many of you guys received a free laptop from the government? That I'm not sure. For those who have lost their jobs, Were you able to get something, or was it subsidized by the government? Now, you might be wondering, what makes New Zealand rich? Okay, imagine that they're the #1 producer of milk in the world. Why? Because how many humans are in New Zealand? Approximately 5 million, but how many cows? 11 million. How many sheep in New Zealand? 30 million. That explains why they have more than enough. Okay, just go to any store or any grocery, look at the milk, and you will notice that there's something that indicates it's a product of New Zealand. So for as long as milk is consumed all over the world, New Zealand will not run out of money. I tell you that. Now, let's talk about the job opportunities
Just
for
add
people.
something. So we
Okay,
have this,
please go
if you're a
ahead.
permanent residency, we have this thing called Kiwisaver.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when you, like, they ask you to save for your retirement, like a portion of your income, like even 3% of your income, and then the government also contribute to that. Like it's like probably, I mean, is that SSS in the Philippines? I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Something, but then I was actually blown away because I wasn't working here for like I was in the Philippines. We've been traveling, and every year if you reach a certain amount that you contribute, you get like around, I think, $600 in your KiwiSaver from the government lump sum. And how much is that? It's like
Times 35, is it?
yeah, around 33, 35,
Okay.
almost 20,000 a year. Like they give it to you like in your
Allowance.
savings. Yeah. I'm like, wow, I'm really like, oh, I want to grab that. Because
Especially if you have not worked hard for it, you just receive the money.
yeah, it's really like passive income in a way.
True.
Yeah, if you do your part, they give you more. Like, they match what you contribute. So it really encourages you to save up more. So yeah, and that's for you in the future. Or you can even if you buy your first home grants, we also have that. If you're a first home buyer, you can use your KiwiSaver, and then the government will also give you money. Like I think $10,000 for you to buy your first home.
3.5 million in
No, no,
pesos, approximately.
only around I think $10,000. It's only three
3
hundred
million
fifty
pesos.
dollars. That's the
350,000.
deposit. Yeah.
350. Okay, okay.
Hmm.
Now, let's talk about the job opportunities. Do you think it's difficult for people in New Zealand to look for a job?
Well, it depends on your profession. For nurses right now, it's really shortage because,
Mhm.
yeah, of course, of the pandemic. I know a lot of employers are actually hiring direct now from Singapore, like because of the scarcity. Except it's kind of challenging to come here. There's a lot of paperwork involved, but it's still not impossible. I think construction is a big thing as well. Depending on, because it's changing all the time. Example,
Yes.
engineers. It could be booming now, and then they open it for engineers overseas, and they come here. Once it's filled up, then it will stop, and then it will go to another profession. The thing is, people also from New Zealand move to Australia, so it's like it's like an ongoing thing. Like right now, I think a lot of businesses are really struggling, like because like in tourism, like baristas, like chef, they rely on like there is this visa called holiday visa for 1 year for
Mhm.
below 31 years old, I think, and those a lot of businesses rely on those people, and it's actually also a pathway if you're young, of course. If you're young, because it gives you the time to travel at the same time work, but I think it fills in so quickly for Philippines. They only have slots.
Okay, a lot of our viewers, our subscribers are very particular with the amount. So in our previous vlogs, they learned that when they work as professionals in the United States, that's more than 200,000 pesos per month. That's the usual salary of healthcare workers. And then in the United Kingdom, more than 100,000 pesos per month. Now, what about in New Zealand? Can we please do a rough estimate? Say, for
Sure.
instance, the applicant is a registered nurse. And I'm 100% sure if you're in other countries, you're paid by the hour, okay? So I have with me here my phone. So let's do the mathematics. How much is it in Philippine pesos? Okay, so in New Zealand, what's the usual rate for
Usually
nurses or
33 to
healthcare?
35.
30
33
to,
to 5.
okay, so let's just be conservative. Let's say
33.
33. Okay, let's multiply that by 8 working hours per day. We multiply that by 22 working days per month. That is if you work for 5 days a week. And then the exchange rate, let's just be conservative. Let's put it at 35? 30,
33,
33.
35. Yeah.
Okay, so
33.
this is the conservative, okay? Meaning to say it's minimum. It's not the maximum that you can probably earn. So that's more than 190,000 pesos per month. That does not include the overtime, the holiday pay, and all those extra benefits that you can get from your employer. So is 190,000 bad? I don't think so, considering all the benefits that you can get from the New Zealand government that usually you cannot get elsewhere. Now, we've
You
been
have
talking.
to, depending on your profession, of course, I think this is like something I've just heard, but of course it's not official. So they keep on increasing the minimum wage. Before it used to be like 17, I think 19. And then I remembered when I started as a nurse, I think I started at 23 $23 per hour. That was a while ago. And then it goes up depending on your experience, of course. So they also honor experience from the Philippines, of course. Like that's why for those who are working for a long time in the Philippines, that's very valuable actually compared to those who doesn't have any experience because they count those years of, especially if it is aligned with your profession, what you're working here. Like example, if you're an accountant, of course there's more studies or you have to like do a lot of stuff before you get to the being official, like being a registered nurse or registered accountant, but they look at those experience.
Okay, so we've been talking for almost 30 minutes. Now,
Is that
here's
right? Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
it's almost 30 minutes. Now, here's the most important question. I am certain majority of those planning to go abroad are totally undecided. They're not sure where they want to go. One thing's for sure though, they want to go abroad. So, if Miss Crestine is their fairy godmother, okay, so why are we going to consider, why must they consider New Zealand and say that this is the best choice, the best decision they've made in their lifetime? Why New Zealand?
Well, of course, I'm biased because I live here, but I'm gonna rely on what Oprah says. Well,
Okay.
Oprah came here many years ago, right? And you know Oprah, right? Oprah. So she came here, do her talk and all that. And I guess that's what we are so famous of. It's the life and work balance. I would call New Zealand as like, it's being living here for me is like living in luxury in a simple way. Like, we love to enjoy our life. We're not like some countries, they love to work, 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 and then have grand holiday. For New Zealand, depends, of course, that's me. I kind of am in a holiday feel every day. Although I still work hard, of course, I still work hard, but you get that feel. You get that feel of, I'm on a holiday. And why you will choose New Zealand? Yeah, of course, if you have a family, um, a lot of benefits. It's not the highest paid country, but depending on your priority, if you want like a happier, more relaxed life, if lifestyle is your priority, then it's the country to be in. And of course, I'm the proudest because right now we are the safest country in the world and very, very innovative. If you look at history, right now I think we're the first country who just launched an app for COVID-19 testing that it really increased our efficiency to like, I think testing for 30 seconds to get all those processing for COVID to the lab. And I'm the first one who used that app. I'm just so proud today. And yeah, we work hard for that. Our government works hard for that. Even if it's a small country, it's very, very innovative. And we make names around the world. If it's New Zealand, it's like, oh, the top luxury. It's beautiful. It's like quality, I would say. Yeah.
Miss Christine is so correct. Well, there are certain people who are always thinking of money when going overseas. So, which country pays more? But to be honest with you, life is not just about money. Okay. Sometimes it is something to do with convenience, with comfort. So, if you go to other countries which pay more, well, perhaps they're also overpopulated. Traffic is stressful. And because there are so many people competing for resources, the cost of living is also higher. New Zealand might not be the highest paying, but I've been to all six English speaking countries, and definitely I can say New Zealand's lifestyle is perfect for those who are laid back. So, if you don't want a stressful environment, personally, I would recommend New Zealand for that. So, guys, I would like to thank you for your time that you have spent with us in the last 30 minutes. I'm 100% sure everyone is fighting a battle this 2020. But after the discussion coming from Miss Christine, it feels so relaxing. It feels so encouraging that there's a country after all that can take care of its people despite the pandemic. So the year is not over. You have the remaining weeks of December to do your research on what the options are available for you in going to the land of the long white cloud. That's New Zealand. Guys,
Yeah.
thank you so much for your time. And thank you also to Miss Christine. We'll see you
You're
in our future
welcome.
vlogs.
Bye. Thank you.